Genny Nelson was a modern day superhero. To be able to work with her was kind of, you knew you were in a moment in time that was bigger than life.
I just think about what Genny created and how it's like a rock in the pond. The ripples keep going out.
I always channel my inner Genny when I really need to.
I think what Genny taught me is the power of authenticity. I believe that the love she left on this earth is here, and it's still whispering to us to remember to do the right thing.
As we gather today to think about her brilliance, her care, her love, we know that we're all joined together. Our hearts are joined in grieving her loss and celebrating and honoring her, for we were all so enriched by her gifts and her blessings.
Well, good evening, and thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate Genevieve, Genny Nelson, aka my mommy. So thank you for coming. This is so beautiful to see so many people 2 years after her passing coming to celebrate her life. We had the chance as a family to celebrate her 2 years ago. It was very intimate, 30 people. It was a beautiful ceremony. But it didn't represent all of who she is, because this is her community. So it's so beautiful that you all took the time to organize this for her and come and celebrate her and her life. So I'm Joanna Trotter, I'm her daughter. And just a little bit about my mom. First, I'll just say that, her grandkids, her great nieces and nephews knew her as the most amazing grandma and aunt out there. But they didn't know everything about her. And so being able to reflect on all of the contributions she's made, I think it's just a gift to us. So thank you. My mom, Genny Nelson, was born on March 1st, 1952 in Iowa, or in Idaho, excuse me. Yeah, thank you. And I forget that because she was a Portland girl. She was raised here, went down the street to St. Mary's, went to Portland State, and spent her whole career serving this community. And she was the daughter of Robert and Beverly Jo Nelson, the sister of Ality and Mike and Mary Jo. And she's got 3 amazing grandchildren, several nieces and nephews, and a beautiful family and community that loved her. My mom was brave and fearless. I always just am in awe that in her early 20s, she made a choice to adopt 2 children and start a new organization as a co-founder. I don't think I was doing math correctly at that age. So the idea of deliberately doing all of that and taking that kind of risk is amazing. And I think it also just a credit to the community that supported her and us. She founded Sisters of the Road in 1979 with core principles around gentle personalism, nonviolence, and dining with dignity, all that has carried with that organization since its founding. My mother really embodied love and compassion in not just her work, but in every aspect of her life until the day she passed. And I think Bob was the one who said, she died of heart failure, but my mother's heart never failed. Never. And nothing in her transition was a failure. She was so brave and made every decision. Anybody knowing that's what they're facing, what a gift she gave to all of us in the way she planned, in the way she thought it through, in the way she said goodbye to every single one of us. To her community, she just held court for a year. So there's nothing of failure in the way that my mother transitioned. And she advocated tirelessly for the rights of people without homes, to city council, to the state, to the federal government. And, for that, I'm forever proud of being her daughter. So we have a beautiful program tonight, and I hope you all enjoy it and have time to just remember her contributions, and your time with her personally. So I'd like to bring up Larry Didier Jr. and Maya Didier, the grandnephew and niece of Genny, and the daughter of Ality Didier and Dawn.
We are going to read the prayer, We Remember Her. Please respond by saying, We remember her after each verse. In the rising of the sun and in its going down.
In the blowing of the wind. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter.
In the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring.
In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer.
In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn.
In the beginning of the year and when it ends.
When we are weary and in need of strength.
When we are lost and sick at heart.
When we give joy, we yearn to share.
So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us.
Thank you.
So now we're part of the program where folks will share their stories, and we have some dear friends of Genny's to come up and share their memories. I want to start with Maggie McKenzie, who's a coach for aging and a teacher of adapted yoga for aging. She has taught yoga since 1970. She studied engaged Buddhism with Thich Nhat Hanh for 8 years. Maggie?
Hello. I met Genny in January of 2020. It was a short and wonderful friendship. Ality took my yoga class at that time. It had been 2 years, and she convinced her sister to come with her. And even though Genny used a cane for balance and had serious health issues, she came to a yoga class. It's pretty amazing. And she originally sat on a chair and did the poses, and then she decided she wanted to try floor poses. So she moved down to the floor. And one time she toppled over, and I went over and held her, and she was shaking, and she said, that scared me. That scared me to topple over. And we did deep breathing together, and she said, okay. And then she was ready, and she did the rest of the class. At that class, at the end, as we typically did, we did a meditation. We stood in a circle facing each other, and we inhaled love into ourselves, and then we distributed love into the world. And after that, Genny was just glowing, and it was like that was her language, to generate and share love, which is a really great language. In March of 2020, the class moved from in a studio to Zoom, and Genny had missed a few classes then, and she sent me, I want to get the dates right, she sent me an email on April 20th after she missed a couple of classes, and she said she hoped to be returning to class soon, ! And that was a very hard week for her. She saw her cardiologist that following week, and by the week after that, on the 27th, she sent an email that said, my heart is worsening. I'm in late-stage heart disease. I have been crying a lot, and I also feel peace. I'm receiving great love and support from my family and friends who are here. for which I'm extremely grateful. I hope you understand that for now, she wasn't discounting coming back to yoga class, that for now, I will not be coming to yoga class. You are an amazing teacher and mentor. Love and respect, Genny. I am so humbled that she would consider me a mentor, because look at her. I'm just really happy she was a friend of mine. And we started talking on the phone about once a week after that, because as I'm sure with everybody in this room, we had what felt like a super authentic, genuine, loving relationship. She just did that. And we mostly talked about how to lessen injustice and suffering, how to move this country and the world towards justice. And it was I had this very unique relationship in my life because we would laugh all through that. I don't remember what promoted it, but we were just laughing. And then we'd get back to this serious suffering, and then we would laugh. And that was, I felt, a great way to plan for huge social change, because I have other people, we have those same discussions, and we become so despondent with despair, we can hardly we have to go take a big break, But with Genny, there was this given that she would work forever for the betterment of humanity, but that she wouldn't let go of love and whimsy and joy. And for that, I'm really grateful to her. And we need Genny right now. We need Genny in this time of fascism and white supremacy. And we need her studied response to resistance. We need her indomitable spirit and her capacity for love. And what we have is what we learned from her and each other.
So next I want to introduce Chiquita Rollins, who is a friend and colleague of Genny and is part of a breakfast club founded in 1992 with Genny and 3 other executive directors of small nonprofit organizations. This was my first time meeting Chiquita, and I always laugh because she had this mysterious women's group. And they're all here, so it's so exciting to get to see them. And they would go to the beach together, and I would hear all these stories, and now I get to see their faces. So
Thank you. It's really an honor to be asked to do this. Genny was such a special, special person, and irreplaceable in so many ways. But as Joanna said, I met Genny in 1992 through Gretchen Dersch and Mary Heffernan, who were part of the women's group, and we were at a tax meeting. And then they got together and decided that they were going to form this group, and for some reason invited me. And it changed my life in so many ways. And so on a monthly basis, we had breakfast together and talked about what was happening in our work, mostly, and tried to help each other to figure out how to move forward. I mean, running a small nonprofit is quite difficult for lots of reasons. And that was the beginning of now what was a 28-year friendship with Genny, and a 30-year relationship with the other members of the group. And I think she had a big impact because on a group, because of her love for us. I mean, she really is a very, very loving person, for her humility and her integrity. And one of the things that, I mean, you all know, she was committed to social change through personal relationships, and she was also committed to accountability through directly talking to the person if there's a conflict, and to going forward and owning her stuff, as she called it, and doing all that with love and humility. So that we learned that from her. And so over the 28 years I knew her, the battles with her health were, as Gretchen said, unrelenting and frustrating. And in spite of that, she kept her faith in humanity, her ability to love life, and to love her friends and her family and her community. And she continued to challenge herself to go beyond what she thought she could do, sort of like in the yoga class, right? So anyway, at some point, the Breakfast Club started going on weekend retreats, which originally we talked business and ate and went for walks. And we went to Mount Hood, we went to Black Butte, we went to the beach, we went, I guess that's basically everywhere we went, year after year, every year. And, but you know, as we went through this, you know, life happened, babies were born. Family members died, jobs changed, and health issues arose. And our friendships deepened to include all of that. And she loved those weekends, the conversations, the food, the 12 hours of sleep, and the time that she got to spend in nature. And so I want to tell you a couple stories about that. So on our first trip, we went to Black Butte Ranch. So this was after her first heart attack. And we hiked to the top of the 6,000-foot butte. And the trail ended with a very steep 1,000-foot gain. And yes, Lauren's like, oh. And which was challenging for Genny and for other people too. And we truly hadn't really expected her to make it to the top, but she surprised us, and she did. And she probably surprised herself also. And she was really, really proud of her achievement, and she gave us one of those big, beautiful smiles and grins that she could do, and her face lit up. And she was so proud of that achievement that she actually talked about it later on, about how important it was to her. So she surprised us again in 2018 when we went to Sun River. For those of you who aren't in Oregon, those are in eastern Oregon. One's near Bend and one's near Sisters, and beautiful areas. The house we rented had these several old clunker bicycles that we hauled out and filled the tires. And, you know, it's an act of faith to get on a bicycle after you haven't ridden for many, many years. And, but for Genny was up for it. She got on. She pedaled out to the Deschutes River, to the shopping center that's there, and then back to the house, and loved every minute of it. And it was impressive. We were impressed, and because we didn't think she was going to go with us, but anyway. And the other part that I want to talk about is how much she loved her grandchildren and her family, because she talked about it a lot. And her grandchildren brought her a great deal of joy. Her eyes lit up every time she talked about them, and she missed them when she couldn't be with them. Her year in Chicago was such a really loving time for her. It meant so very much to her to get to spend that time with Aubrey and Sanaya and Joanna and Sean. And it was a hard decision when she decided to come back to Portland, but it was the right decision, and it was an important decision. And the apartment where she lived, where she moved into in Portland, and was living in when she died. So after years of shared housing, she was able to make her own home, to put up her own art, to have her own books, to have her own furniture, to have it the way she liked it and wanted it. And it really was, she once said to me, it was the nicest place she'd ever lived. So it was a very special place. There was a room for Sasha to stay in, and she really, really treasured that time with him. Her relationship with Dorian became closer, and she's deeply thankful for your support during that time and her help. And every time I visited her there, it seemed to me she was surrounded by love, and some of that I realized was her emanating all her love that she had, but it was also her son and grandson, her sister, her niece, her neighbors, and her many, many friends who assisted her while she was there. And we miss her, and we will miss her greatly in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Chiquita. Next, I want to introduce Jill Fuglister, who joined the Sister staff in 1993 and served as their operations manager for 2.5 years. Since then, she stayed connected with Sisters community as a supporter and partner in advocating for affordable housing and housing justice. Jill?
Hello, everyone. So honored to be, had been invited by Christine and the rest of the planning group to share a few words with y'all as a representative of one of the many folks who had the privilege of working alongside Genny over the years at Sisters. You know, I really consider Genny one of my most important mentors, and my time at Sisters one of my most formative experiences. That time really has shaped, you know, all the work I've pursued since then, and really, you know, the way I try to show up in this world as a human being. I want to give a shout out to my friend Barb, who's also here. It's really thanks to her that I found Sisters and found my way there, and got to meet Genny and become friends with her. Yesterday, Barb and I were swapping some of our favorite stories about Genny, some of which are included in my comments. And I really remember the first time I walked into the cafe, and people remarked on this all the time. You just like immediately felt that amazing, welcoming Sisters vibe. And if love could really be in the form of a place, I think it would be Sisters of the Road Cafe. And that's in large part thanks to Genny's vision and her commitment to the mission of Sisters and to building community. She really taught me so many things, and I'm going to share a few of them with you. She taught me what social justice values aligned leadership is. She was incredibly humble and always sought out ways to learn more and deepen really how to live into the values of social justice and community building that were at the core of what Sisters was about. And her model of leadership is something I really hold close to me in the spaces where I hold leadership. She introduced me to community organizing and the idea that those who are closest to the problems are closest to the solutions. Again, a core concept that I really bring into all of the work that I do today. You know, about a year or so in my time at Sisters, I remember her sharing her concern that Sisters had kind of drifted away from community organizing, and she wanted to do a reset around this. And so one of the steps she took was to ask me and a few other staff to take a training on the fundamentals of community organizing with Kathy Turner and Liz Kaufman. Not sure if either of them are here today, but two amazing organizers. And coming out of this, we created something called Visions in Action in 1994. And the mission, I wrote it down here, quote, is to build systems that develop leadership and involve people who are directly affected by poverty and hunger so that they have a sense of their own power to win concrete victories and also alter the relations of power. Folks from that group went on to do so many amazing things like create Dignity Village, advocate to decriminalize camping, and build more affordable housing in Portland, and many more things. Genny had a lot of unique and adorable sayings. Remember how she would say, "Let me put a bug in your ear." When she said this to me, I remember eagerly leaning in to hear what she was going to share, but also thinking, like, please don't really put a bug in my ear. Barb also reminded me that Barb might be the only person that we knew who used phrases from the 1970s like far out in a non-ironic way. And we think that this might be really because, like so many other folks who came of age in that time, she never gave up on the vision of that time. The thing that she said often that has really stuck with me is that nobody has a monopoly on the truth. I still hold the wisdom of this saying close to my heart, understanding that each one of us is valued and each one of us brings a unique truth to the table. And the last thing I want to appreciate about Genny was really how she taught me about the concept of practice as applied to social change. It was already shared, but the first thing in our job descriptions at Sisters of the Road was to practice nonviolence and gentle personalism. And this was like truly remarkable to me, and really just embodied Genny's understanding of a pretty simple idea, which was to make change, we have to practice the change we want. And somebody already spoke to the accountability piece, and so she really modeled that when she felt like she wasn't living into the change that she wanted to create. So I'll leave you with a call to action to remember Genny by finding ways, small and big, to practice some of the things that she practiced. Be in deep relationship with one another and with people from all communities. Look for ways to shift power to those who have the least and be the change that Genny worked for her entire beautiful life. Thank you.
All right, Jill, as my mom would say, you're the bee's knees. So next, I want to introduce my big bro, Dorian Barnhart, to talk a little bit about Mom.
So I entered my mom's life at or about the age of 3.5, me being the 3.5-year-old. So we've been having issues with math. So I was part of that early 20s decision to get the 2 kids, and I'm really thankful actually that I was. So during my time with my mom, my mother taught me many, many different things, like a lot. Yet there is one that I find, there's one lesson I find that I return to daily, because my mom taught me how to love. She did this by example and with tremendous patience and exceptional grace. My mother loved with a ferocity, a purity, and a capacity that is just profound. My mother's love was true and authentic, and I felt that in every moment, no matter where our relationship was. She taught me that love is merely a concept without authentic action supporting and growing it. That to truly love, you must be totally and completely committed to living your principles. Committed to challenging comfort for the reward of growth and new understandings. That love is to be shared, celebrated, and cherished. That all are deserving of love. My mother loved with such a ferocity I can still feel it. My mother taught me love is eternal. My mother did all of this with love. Thank you.
I got right now. Okay. Next, I want to introduce Bob Durston. Bob is an old friend of Genny's. He will be reading the words of Alberta Burt Searstad, a longtime Sisters volunteer, board member, and devoted and grateful friend of Genny. She's, so yes, come on, Bob.
I'm a little concerned about your emphasis on old, but I'll live with that. One, I'm quite honored to be speaking on Bert's behalf. She would have been here if she could, but unfortunately she can't. But she taught me the lesson, and it's consistent with every other speaker here, that we're all in this room because we knew Genny somehow, or we knew somebody who knew Genny, and we have connections through Genny. So it's very special that a part of it. I really appreciate it. But these are Bert's words from here on. Neither of them remember this, but current board member Doug Bloom first told me about Sisters about 30 years ago. And past board member, me, Bob Durston, asked me to become a member of the board a few years after that. She still liked me, which I appreciate. For health reasons, I am unable to attend today's memorial for Genny, and Bob has graciously consented to read my words. Now, in parenthetical, she writes, I hope to be viewing the event surreptitiously and virtually somewhere in the room, and I'm going to add my own parenthetical. Bert, if you're hearing this, there you are. That kind of creeps me out because I can't even say surreptitiously. And we're back to Bert. From the moment I met Genny, I was in awe of her. It was a bit later that we became friends. It was through that process that I learned how incredibly and genuinely real and unpretentious this woman was, but also how vulnerable she could be. I was gratified to realize that I could always depend on great support from Genny, and often I was able to give her the needed support too. Genny looked for and thrived on situations where all parties were together in genuine and authentic relationships, and of course, practicing nonviolence and gentle personalism, and making sure that everyone maintains their dignity. That's no easy combination, as you can imagine. That's the epitome of Sisters, and Genny too. I believe Genny is someone whom you cannot separate from her philosophies and beliefs. They are one and the same. That's so true. We are all grateful that she was here to teach us about those grand but realizable notions. I must admit that much of our friendship developed from me giving Genny rides home from Sisters meetings and events. Because I had a car, she didn't. Those rides quickly led to more and more opportunities to get to know each other, but also to talk about Sisters and the issues that we were facing in our lives. I would typically pull up to Genny's house, and the two of us would sit in the driveway wrapped in our discussions. Often we'd be there so long that car windows would fog up. We were sure there were some times when people wondered what was going on in that car. The answer was nothing but good, authentic relation making. Bert wouldn't have missed it for the world. Genny and I established our deep bond while working together as executive director and president of the board for years. We ran into some very unusual problems at the time and found ourselves spending long hours figuring out how to solve them. And we did solve them. Genny was never, ever, ever afraid to change and had an amazing ability to work collaboratively to figure out what to do, lead others in collaboration to make it happen, and then even evaluate the results to make sure we got it right. There are people who can do that, but nobody could do it the way Genny did, with compassion, gentle personalism, while also building true, authentic relationships along the way. When Genny set out to solve a problem or try something new, she always went directly to the source. She asked people what they needed. She went to their space to see what they saw, to feel what they felt. A novel but brilliant concept, and we need more of that today. Genny always said and believed that no one has a monopoly on truth. Think about that and take it with you and use it when you leave today. Genny played a huge role in Sisters, of course, and was devoted to many others. Thank you, family, friends, and community, for being here today to honor Genny. If by chance you came here today having never met her, I hope that you now know more about her and the tremendous legacy she left behind in all areas of her life. I miss my dear and loving friend. And I'll just close with this event there's a lot of people who helped put this event on, but it was Bert's spirit that made it happen. And Bert, I want you to know that you're getting a lot of love right now, and you'll get a lot of heavy spirit coming at you. So thank you.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks, Bert. Next, I want to introduce my Aunt Ality Didier. She was Jenny's sister, but also her very best friend. She'll be reading the words of Gary Smith, a Jesuit priest who knew Jenny for many years.
Gary Smith is a Jesuit priest here in Portland. He was unable to attend the event today, so I am reading his words about Jenny that came from his book called Moments in the Breach. Jenny and I knew each other for over 30 years. All the time she directed or was connected in her retirement with with a street people restaurant called Sisters of the Road. It was famous for its commitment to the poor. In the end, a combination of long existing ailments killed her at a relatively young age. We both were creatures of service on the streets for the homeless, the disenfranchised, those afflicted by poverty and injustice and the curse of not belonging. She inspired me. She called me in tears in the final months before her death, accepting the realities of her illness, accepting it but not accepting it. Long talks, we always had long talks, over the phone, over dinner in a cheap Portland restaurant, walking along Portland's Willamette River waterfront, in her office at Sisters, by email when I was in Africa. She was one of the most honest people I ever knew. We cherished each other's friendship. For all my high-powered theology of Catholic social doctrine, she always managed to ground it, like her mentor, Catholic worker founder Dorothy Day. She was always rooted in the poor person's experience right in front of her. I learned so much from her, including the towering dignity she carried as she made decisions about end-of-life stuff. She always told me she loved me at the end of every conversation. It was this wonderful woman who challenged me when I was trying to decide between street ministry or shifting my services to refugees in Africa. She reminded me over a salad and glass of wine one night of a favorite philosopher of mine, Soren Kierkegaard, and how I had quoted him in dealing with decisions around social issues. She asked me eyeball to eyeball. Quoting Kierkegaard, is walking with the refugees of Africa an idea you are willing to live and die for? Phew. Talk about the existential question. But yes, I was. 6 months later, I was in Uganda. It would be 15 years later before I returned to Portland. She had retired, but we still had our long lunches and ran ideas past each other and supported each other in love. Jenny was an advocate for the little people in the world. She was fearless in that whether it was challenging a street bully or speaking in front of the Portland city government, she was a person who changed the attitudes of an entire city community. It was never about her, always about the rights of people who were experiencing poverty and the need for systems that would share power and that would build a decent community for all. In the end, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, only her immediate family and few friends could attend the funeral, and me, Gary, the Jesuit priest, her dear friend. We interned her ashes at a Portland cemetery. That was the way she wanted it. The smallness of the group was inversely proportional to the thousands she served and would have been there had conditions allowed it. The tears of her children, the care and devotion of her siblings, and the song we all had in our hearts accompanied her remains to the place of rest. I thank God every day for the gift of Genny Nelson in my life.
So thank you all for the beautiful stories. I think we all come today with a memory of Genny Nelson. So let's take 5 minutes of silence just to reflect on our time with her and how she's touched our lives. All right. Next, I want to call up Lauren Didier, Jenny's niece and goddaughter, who will be reading the Hopi prayer.
Hi. We found this in her belongings, and so we know it meant a lot to her. So I'll share it with you, and was also at her prior funeral. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am sunlight on the ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn's rain. When you awaken in the morning hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. My spirit is alive. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to bring back up Bob. Don't get too comfortable. Let's make an announcement.
And I won't take too much time because we have a lot of celebrating to do left to do. But this is not a solicitation for funding. But we are announcing the formation of a foundation, a PSU Foundation scholarship in Jenny's name. There's some flyers in the back. I'd ask you all to take one because I'll be tracking you down and doing my solicitation elsewhere. But the important thing really is that everybody who's spoken here today has talked about Jenny's vision and energy and how much that vision and energy and philosophy needs to continue in our community now. And the scholarship fund will hopefully make sure that some young people coming up will have the opportunity to go to the School of Social Work and pursue help in the community along what Genny has started. Thank you very much.
So I want to take a moment just to thank Sisters of the Road Cafe for their contributions to the memorial with funds, the staff, the board, and the volunteers. So I'm going to introduce Team Genny. You can raise your hand when you get called. So let's start with Monica Beamer, who is the past executive director and current interim development director for Sisters of the Road. Thank you, Monica. Lisa Hawash, who's the associate professor of practice at PSU School of Social Work and past development director of Sisters of the Road Cafe. Brenda Morgan, who's the past development director of Sisters of the Road Cafe and longtime friend. Alberta, or Bert, Sears' dad, who again is hopefully joining us remotely, who's the past and current Sisters of the Road Cafe board member and longtime friend. We've met Bob Durston, who's a past Sisters of the Road Cafe board member and longtime friend. Ality Didier, Jenny's sister, and again, her dearest friend. And then I want to recognize Christine Appleberry, who will come up in a moment, who is again the past development director of Sisters of the Road Cafe, longtime friend and housemate of Genny.
Thank you, Joanna. I will make a note that Lisa Hawash is in Palestine right now, and Bert was unable to come because of health issues. But we worked via Zoom, and we've been working on this for a while, and this is very rewarding to see you all here. Tom May, as some of you may know, was instrumental in the benefit concert for sisters called Winterfolk. And he was invited to tell a story, but is unable to come, so I will read what he has written. He first sent me a wonderful photograph of Genny and Utah and David Ray after a Winterfolk concert in the kitchen of a friend's house, and Genny was enjoying, as I think of it, one of her favorite drinks, scotch. He says, I have a photograph here taken after a Winterfolk concert in the late 1990s of Genny, Utah Phillips, and old pal David Ray. They are all gone now, but they all look so happy. She adored folk legend Utah Phillips, and he likewise looked up to her and was inspired by her. Consequently, he performed at every Winterfolk until 2007, when he was forced to retire because of his own health issues. As Genny invariably did, no matter what else was going on in her life, she exuded peace and serenity which trailed in her wake wherever she went. You've heard the old expression, they plowed right through the difficulties. That was not Genny. Following the example of the activist Dorothy Day, Genny would surround the obstacle with love, respect, and compassion. And then the next thing you knew, the obstacle ceased to be an impediment. Some of the most intransigent and seemingly unlikely folks would become friends and allies and work with the work that she was dedicated to. And thus she changed the world. Yes, homelessness and poverty are still tremendous problems, in some ways as intractable, I'm having trouble as you'll know the word I mean, as they ever have been. But Genny Nelson's work, her insight, her core principles literally made a difference to tens of thousands, not just in Portland, but across the United States. Her efforts still resonate in the lives of so many, as we've seen today. She was simply the most courageous, inspiring person I have ever known. I feel incredibly fortunate to have been able to get to know her and spend time with her. It was a tremendous privilege raising money through Winterfolk for Genny and Sisters of the Road Cafe. Winterfolk still continues each February. This coming event will be Winterfolk 34. And I was honored to introduce her once again to a capacity crowd at the Alberta Rose Theater in February 2019, where we were so delighted she was able to attend. The audience gave her a long, heartfelt ovation as I attempted to convey how important she was to the concert, to the music, and the community. It has now been almost 2 years, but she is not forgotten. And I would invite us now to all give Genny a rousing standing ovation. If you would like to volunteer and help transform this room into a dining room, and then we will enjoy sharing stories and having some Sisters of the Road Cafe beans, rice, and cornbread.
To be around Genny was to be around greatness. There was no one really like Genny. To be able to work with her was kind of, you knew you were in a moment in time that was bigger than life. To be around her, and I think that the good people of the world felt very thankful to be around Genny, and the bad people of the world felt very honored to be around Genny. And Genny, her work crossed over political and spiritual and cultural ideologies and experiences, and being able to work with Genny really was something special to watch. I just think of her being able to walk in so many different worlds, whether that be with somebody on the streets, or whether that be with somebody in a powerful political role, or whatever that might be. And I often think of Genny just being able to walk in those spaces. And to me, that's what embodies her work.
I think what Genny taught me is the power of authenticity. And oftentimes when we are trying to raise awareness or to change people's opinions, there's a pressure to like water it down, to make it more palatable. And there's something about everything with Sisters of the Road that is so raw, and it's so real and so unapologetic. It's really inspiring to see the type of power that comes from being unapologetic. I'm sure they had a lot of difficult points where they got knocked down and faced pushback, and yet they have shown time and time again there's something that they can never take away when you are true to yourself. And so I really love how Genny and her work has always been a testament to that. Her legacy is needed so critically right now. I wish that her physical presence could be here, but I believe that the love she left on this earth is here, and it's still whispering to us to remember to do the right thing.
Well, in a time long, long ago, before Twitter and Google and cable news network and the proliferation of mass-mediated images and all of that, and a time when our phones were not that smart, or we had apps to guide our lives, I met Genny Nelson. I met her through a mutual friend, Patricia Roomer, and at that time I was running the National Microradio Implementation Project. The Federal Communications Commission had just allowed a whole lot of low power frequencies available to nonprofit organizations to have radio stations. So Genny heard I was doing this work and she said, let's get together. And she invited me to Sisters of the Road. And she says, I want to start a radio station. I said, that's great. And she told me more and more about the project. She opened up this door to this room and all of this radio equipment was there. She was ready to start this radio station. And it was not just the station itself. She wanted to gather people from the street and people who she served, her community and her project served, to run that radio station, to grab all the information, the critical information that people themselves wanted to share, that people could use to make those important decisions about their lives. But the most important thing I thought was so creative, she says, and I want to give transistor radios to every single person who can tie in and listen to this station. Because she knew people were on the move. People weren't always around, listening to a set radio station or television, and she knew the mobility issues and the challenges that folks who didn't have the resources to keep that mass-mediated stuff coming at them. So for me, it showed me that there was someone like Genny Nelson thinking clearly outside of the box about a really special need of the people in Portland. And so as we gather today to think about her brilliance, her care, her love, we know that we're all joined together. Our hearts are joined in grieving her loss and celebrating and honoring her and just continuing to giving her a standing applause for all that she was and did for all of us, for we were all so enriched by her gifts and her blessings.
I was hired to be Sisters Development Director in November of 1993. Once we were through the holiday fundraising season, I began looking at longer range goals. I asked Genny what her 5-year plan was for the cafe. She looked at me and replied, I don't have one. I'm not going to live that long. Early in her diagnosis, when she was a little girl, doctors told her she would die at 40, and she believed them. She was 41. I insisted that she would live that long and that we needed a plan. I think to be kind, she worked with me to create a multi-year financial goals for the cafe. She lived another 27 amazing years. And I'm so happy she did.
I've been homeless since 2015 this time, and I think she understood our community, our what we deal with on a daily basis. She had tremendous compassion for that, and how society wants to put us in like these little boxes, right, and put all these labels on us, and we don't fit the norm, and it's okay, right? It's okay for people to be different. It's okay for life, for creativity. And what I learned especially from Genny is how to love people even in a more deeper way. Her legacy will go on and on and on. She won't be forgotten.
I had the privilege to serve as the executive director of a social justice nonprofit called Know Your City. And Know Your City really helped to teach people around Portland, its history, but also its dedication to social change. And I think around 2014, we had released a series of comics, 10 comics, called Voices for Change. And we highlighted 10 local heroes that were working on social justice in the community. One of them was Genny Nelson. And her story around social change was so impactful for me because when I first came to Portland in 2009, I myself was a homeless youth. And so I had been an advocate for affordable housing and housing justice for many years. And just to know Jenny's work and to really see her and see what she went through with her ability to take her vision for justice up to a national stage. Genny was one of the really strong proponents for making changes to EBT and STAT policy nationwide so that they could actually serve hot food to houseless folks. And just to see that type of vision and the focus on humanizing humans has always been super inspiring for me. And so it's been an honor to be connected to Genny in that way and to get those comics out to people of all backgrounds here in Portland to demonstrate her legacy and the work that we all are capable of.
The thing that I always appreciated about Genny is she was willing to mentor so many different people. And as a young organizer coming up, I worked at Street Roots. I was learning how to run a nonprofit and how to hold myself in the world. I came from a violent background, had a lot of anger as a young community organizer. I had come from kind of a violent, traumatic past, and she really held space for me to really accept nonviolence in my life, and really worked with me as a mentor. And I think that her ability to mentor so many different people on one hand, but also she valued the idea of being a mentee as well. And she never stopped learning. She never stopped being able to learn from young people and older people and experienced people and people new to a movement. And I always felt like some of the best things that I learned from Genny was to always create space to mentor others in your life, but always create space to have a variety of people constantly mentoring you. And I think that that's something that a valuable lesson that I will always carry with me.
I'm reading this for Brenda Cartino, who cannot be here. She's an amazing woman that I worked with at Sisters of the Road Cafe in the 90s. This is her story about Genny and the cafe. To say that my life changed dramatically and for the better the day I met Genny Nelson is probably the understatement of the century. I met her the day I interviewed for a job at Sisters of the Road Cafe. I interviewed with 3 people and was terrified. They turned out to be some of the very nicest people I'd ever met and became very dear friends. I had never heard of nonviolence. I had certainly never heard of gentle personalism. They explained it to me. I was blown away. What a concept. Could there really be such a thing in this cool, cold, cruel world? I'd grown up with violence, rage, alcoholism, terror, shame, etc. When the interview was finished, I told them, "You may find someone else more qualified than me and hire them. But I hope to God that this nonviolence thing really works. Please don't ever give up on it. I really, really, really hope it works." They hired me. What a miracle. I was just over 90 days clean and sober when I started at Sisters with PSTD so bad. Now, 29 years later, clean and sober. I have to, wait a minute, I can't read it. Thanks to the support and love and understanding from Genny and Sisters, and of course that higher power and the 12 steps. They cared and understood. They taught me the ways of nonviolence. Genny mentored me. She offered me that best friendship that she spoke of. We became very close friends, and she remained so the entire 7 years I worked there, and ever since, like family, really. Genny helped me work through all my stuff so that I was able to break the cycle of violence with my children. Genny gave my children and entire family that best friendship. My kids still cherish her like I do. She would have a Genny Day with each one of the kids individually so that they could see how special they were and how much they meant to her. I now watch my 3 kids practice nonviolence and gentle personalism in their own lives and with their own children. We are all changing the entire world. She never gave up. I became able to be the change I wanted to see, and to see nonviolence spread. To watch our amazing, beloved customers carry that magic and message into their own lives. To see that the human spirit had not died inside of people. It was very much alive. And when you are no longer that faceless, nameless, homeless man or woman, when you are seen and valued, loved, respected, and appreciated, that's when that spirit thrives. It worked in me. It worked for so many people. It still does. Let us never drop the torch. Let's keep the flame of love and peace, nonviolence, and gentle personalism alive for Genny, for us, for the whole world. Thank you, Genny. There are no words for the depth of emotion that I feel, for the appreciation and the love and respect that I have, for all the wonderful memories we have made together and all the lives we have touched by your love. I always channel my inner Genny when I really need to. Genny, thank you for always being there and always caring. We shall carry your love with us forever.
I want to tell a story about Genny, how I met her. I was volunteering at one of the events down over in Alberta, and my job was to go and help people get signed up for our mailing list and also make sure that their information was correct. So this beautiful woman comes up to me and I ask her, "Hey, are you on our mailing list?" And she says, "No, I'm on the mailing list, but my mail keeps going to my sister's." So I go and I do all these complicated fics and I'm writing notes, and my friend comes up and goes, "Hey, do you know who that is?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "That's Genny, the co-founder." And I was just like, oh, I was just shocked and awe. It was so wonderful to meet her, and she was so gracious. But one thing that really stands out, and you know, I started all my advocacy in 2017 from the from the inside of Sisters. I lived on the windowsill, and even in my job today, and I co-founded a low barrier jobs program. I always specifically think about this. The principles are incredibly important to me. But gentle personalism, all people are good. And when given an opportunity, we display goodness. We treat people as a whole. We give each other room to be whole. The basis for gentle personalism at Sisters is love and community. We believe that if we sit down and share our stories together and get to know each other, we will stand up for each other's freedoms and fight for a just society. I just think about what Genny created and how it's like a rock in the pond. The ripples keep going out. there's so many things that she's not even aware of that seed she planted sprouted.